So, did everybody have a good New Year's, good Christmas, good break? It was fantastic, exciting stuff. Yeah? Anybody do anything like super exciting, like very different that you've never done before? Is that different for you, Walt? Yeah, I can't say I did anything different. Went to Phoenix and then came back and yeah, same stuff. The fireworks that people spend, did anybody spend like a ton of money on fireworks this year? You did? I don't believe you. Did you guys? Zero. See, we're all in similar mindset. Like, I don't spend any fireworks. I just step outside my door at midnight with these guys and watch everybody's thousands of dollars of money go up in smoke, right? I mean, this is great for me. I get an entertainment. I get a show. I didn't have to spend anything.
Can you try again?
Whoops, no, not you. All right, so let's start. Go to Jeremiah 6:16. I don't know if I have that on the board. Yeah, I do. So this has been something that, I don't know if you guys took the questions and you looked and you reviewed some of the questions from a couple weeks ago and kind of reviewed the last year. If you've reflected on the last year. And one of the things that last year, this verse, for probably about 9 months, was just constant in me. And I've told some of you, I feel like as we approach the end of the year that we're supposed to get back to our roots. And as I looked at this verse, stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient paths and where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. This idea of getting back to our roots, returning to who we were. Because I think over the 18 years that we've been here, we've kind of learned and grown and done a few things, and the building has consumed a lot of our time. Ask Aaron and Abby. Like, there's a lot of things that take place in this building, from repairs to maintenance to all kinds of stuff. And then you add in a storm here or there and a roof being blown off and an entire building being destroyed. And you get all of these things put back together. And I found that I wondered if this conviction had come because we'd kind of got off course. We'd kind of lost our direction, lost our heading if we were in a boat. And so one of the things that we put, and I don't think I have the slide until later, but we had talked a lot about our mission statement or our vision statement, what we wanted to be. And over the years, we've kind of to put a few things together. But really, the idea of who we are as a community, as the gathering, was a very simple idea. And it got kind of wordy a little bit, but the idea to become a spiritual community. But what kind of a spiritual community? A spiritual community of restoration, of authenticity, and wholeness. These are the things that we've talked about in all of our teachings. But included in that, we wanted to become this spiritual community through our pursuit of living as Jesus lived. We believe that restoration and authenticity and wholeness can be had as we continue to pursue this Yeshua, this Messiah, that if we pursue to live like Him, to pursue Him to God, that we can find these things in our lives. And so, as I looked at this and trying to review for last year and where we're going this year, there was a question that another pastor asked me because he was struggling it with his community. He said, how is what we are learning changing our lives? I thought, wow, that is a great question. Because if you come on a regular basis and you keep hearing and listening to all this stuff, but the question is any of the stuff that you're listening to, does it make any difference? Is your life different today, this year, compared to January of 2024? So on that, one of the other things I told you I was reading, do you remember what I was reading all last year? Over and over and over and over and over? Remember what I said? Proverbs, over and over and over. So Proverbs 15, I think I have it on the board, says this. He who ignores discipline hates himself, but he who listens to reproof gets understanding. The fear of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is the discipline of wisdom, and before esteem or before glory is humility. Now, I know everybody loves this word discipline, right? Love discipline. Yes, my wife is like, dead silence in that, man. Like, nobody says anything about discipline. As I looked at this, he who ignores discipline hates himself. I pondered on that for a long time, and I've thought about that, and I thought, it's interesting. When Yeshua is asked, what are the greatest commandments, what is his retort? What does he say? Love what?
Love one another as I love you, love yourself.
Love your neighbor as yourself. Right? He says these are the two greatest commandments. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, and soul, and strength, resources. And the second is just like it. It's hitched to it. Love your neighbor as yourself. I wonder, how many people struggle with the idea that we are to love ourselves? Do you ever think about that? What does it mean to love yourself? I think for so many people, it's so hard to think of this idea that I'm to love myself because, as I talked all last year, so many people have this negative message within them. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. How can I love myself if I'm not worthy of any of this stuff? How is it even possible to think that I can love myself if I have all of these regrets and all this shame and all this guilt and all this crap that I still carry around like baggage to the airport? How can I love myself if I'm blank? I believe that 2025 is going to be the year where we return to our roots, to get back to these ideas, love being one of them. I know that this guy back here, talk about love, talk about love, talk about love. Yes. And that'll be a lot of what we talk about. The idea of loving God and loving people, but also loving yourself. He who ignores discipline hates himself, but he who listens to reproof gets understanding. The fear of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Do you remember what the word for fear is? Yirah. So it means fear, but what else does it mean? Nope. Awe. It means the awe of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. The fear of Yod. That's the same word. Fear in Yah is the same word. And as I looked at this several times over last year, I saw something that I didn't catch the first several times that I read it. But the idea that the awe of God is actually connected to discipline and humility. The more disciplined we are, the more humble we are, the more we will be in awe of God. How many of us struggle with being in awe of God, of just being, wow, God, you are so amazing. We're having this fear of God, like, okay, I know that I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. I need to say no to this. Or I need to say yes to this. But I can't because I'm not disciplined. Or maybe I struggle with pride. But for those of us who wish and desire to be in absolute awe of God every single day, I think this is where it begins. It begins with discipline and humility. If we want to experience, we talked about yada, experiencing God, like to not just to just know God, but to know Him in such a way where I experience Him every day. How do you do that if you don't have discipline or humility? If you want to grow in your relationship, well, how do we do that? I looked at this from a few different ways, and I think it's applicable to almost every job or thing that you do. If you're in the gym, how many people have a New Year's resolution to go to the gym this year? Nope, not me, right? If you go to the gym, if you work out, if you do anything like this, your growth is in proportion to the weight that you take on voluntarily. If you want to get stronger, you add more weight. If you want to run farther, you run farther. The amount of upper limit, like how much weight can you actually do, is unlimited. How far can you run? The more you train, the more you can run. The more weight that you push, the more weight you can push the next time. It's almost unlimited. I mean, there's probably some limit, but you don't know what it is. But if you do nothing, what's the limit? 0. Or death, one of the two. What most people don't realize, Walt, and you should know this too, that you are capable of doing remarkable things. Unbelievable things. God has designed you and wired you in such a way that you can actually do more than you actually usually think you can. And what happens when you do? It changes you on the other side. When you put yourself in very hard, difficult situations, what happens afterwards isn't like you're torn down and destroyed. You're usually stronger and better because of it. I have a picture. Next slide. Some of you know, Roman went through a 13-week boot camp and a 52-hour crucible. For 52 hours, they sleep deprived him, food deprived him. Like within the first hour, they were like this, right? 52 hours in just absolute mud. And you got a Marine back here, right? You know, right? This is what it is. It is an excruciating, hard thing. How many of you noticed when Roman came back that he was not the same as he left? Anybody? So everybody in this room could say, he's different. When you put yourself in a position where you have to be forced beyond your comfort zone to do something that's hard and to struggle, you adapt. You change. You become that person. I also saw it in Justice. I mean, I couldn't get you should have seen his final for thermodynamics. Like, it was a 2-hour final for 2 questions. And the math, it was like pages long. It was like what you see in a movie. You know, like these people that put all these math formulas on the wall, like, it's stupid. Literally, like, I don't even know what it is, like gibberish. He passed by the skin of his teeth, but he passed. At an 80% fail rate in the class. People aren't designed to pass that class. They're supposed to fail. He didn't. Because he's been pushing himself since high school. Like, since the swim coach made him get up and every Saturday morning go and swim in a pool, in 50-degree pool, and the steam's coming off the pool because it's so freaking cold. Somewhere along the line, he learned discipline. So 2025, circle of change. Here's what we want to do this year. Obviously, we do some things with teaching. We do this every week. We need to get back to some of the other discipleship things that we do, smaller groups, one-on-one stuff, things that we do together. But the next thing that we wanted to do is one of the things that we stopped doing. I don't know how this happened or why this happened, but we used to do service projects all the time. We would go out in the community and we would help people in their homes, broken, their roofs or their walls or their flooding or whatever. We did this for years, and it stopped. And it's been a burden on me for months now. So one of the things that I've talked with a few people is creating a team where we get ideas, and it's Kim and John and Kevin. Hey, you're all sitting next to each other like you planned this. That's great, right? That's right. So there's this group of people is in charge of coming up with like ideas. So if you have somebody that you know, hey, these people are in trouble. These people need help. They have their fence blown down and they just can't fix it, or they're older or whatever. Any type of idea, come to these guys and say, hey, look into these people. Because one of the things that I want to do is, the goal was once a month, but I don't know if we're actually going to be able to do it because we have other things on the list. But on a regular basis, at least a couple times a quarter, instead of meeting here, we're going to go out to there. We're going to go help people. We're going to go serve people. We're going to do what Jesus said. Hey, go and be the hands and feet. Go do what I've asked you to do. Don't just come in here and absorb and absorb and absorb. Go take this message out there with your hands and your feet. Get out of this place. Over this year, I think one of the things that I've been wanting to do is do less in here, this community, to do less in here, because really, as I've looked over the years, this community is really not connected to anything else in the building that much. So what are we doing in here? Let's get out and affect change. Let's get out and serve and love people. Gathering groups. We launched last year these gathering groups where people would meet in people's homes. Once again, not in here, but in smaller groups. What's the feedback been? What? Amazing. Okay, what else? Kevin, what'd you say? I wouldn't go that far, he said. One of the things that I found is everybody's like, for people who have never been in a gathering group or a small group like this before, it's like, this is amazing. This is great. Because what happens? You get in a smaller context. What was the vision and the mission, right? Authenticity, vulnerability. You get to actually be in conversation with people and talk about what you're learning. Talk about what's going on. And all of a sudden, you start to break through some barriers that you've never talked about things with people before. To be honest and to be real with people. This is scary, but it's also liberating. It's freeing when you're able to do that. To be able to trust people that you've maybe not been willing to trust people before. These things that are counterintuitive happen in these groups. And so if you're not in a group and you have time, I think there's a group that meets on Tuesday, Thursday, and I meet on Thursday too. We meet on Thursday as well. So if talk to Rustin as well, like if you have a Tuesday or Thursday night and we meet for an hour and a half, we break bread, we have a meal, there's a small teaching, and then we just kind of hang out, we talk about life. It's amazing what can happen in a small group like that. This is one of the things that it's going to be our focus on. I hope to get everybody into these groups.
You talk about going back to the roots, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we learned through the Bible school and that, right? That a disciple, right, never learned by himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So always get somebody there. And I know there's a type of accountability that's not the old way. Is always being there to tell somebody what to do and not to do. But that accountability of awareness, right?
Right.
Somebody else on that same journey.
Right.
And I got amazed, with Andrea. Because we've been talking a lot, and so I respect it, right? But never had a chance to hear the one person, not Matt's wife, but Andrea,
Right.
as, a person who's a teacher and a principal, and her perspective on it, and it's like, for me, it broke through, it brought forth what was some religious things I had inside of me, the way I see things, and
Right.
it was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciated it more.
Sure.
And I think maybe me and my wife, we've been having conversation about things, what we're reading. And so, I tell you, I think it's been amazing. I think that has been one of the most major things that has brought the most change in my life in years. It makes everything that we read personal.
Wow. Sure.
So, anyway,
Good feedback. And that's one of the things that we're trying to, you said religion, we're trying to break that idea where what we do is what you just come and you are the congregation and I am the pastor and I preach to you and you leave. right? Where these small groups, you recognize that the body is not a hierarchy of Matt and then everybody else. It is all of us. We are all called to this. What?
We attacked some pretty hard questions,
We do. Absolutely.
and we all had our take on it, you know? Right, Lindley?
I never had.
Lindley will sit there and say nothing until like 10 minutes that we got left, and he'll throw this grenade in the room and like, all right, I gotta go, peace out.
No, but you don't realize what somebody's even thinking.
Right.
And sitting there with you, you know, and doing this journey together.
It is, yeah, which is great because we get to hear all these perspectives, and it's all free to be able to. There's no judgment in these groups. It's okay if you have a different view, a different perspective. Those are the benefits.
I don't know the numbers on that. I mean, I'm not that kind of a person to look up like what's the percentage. But even and nothing down. I mean, I like the prayer all, but when we was doing the prayer today, a lot of it was me, and what we doing. I wonder if we need to get back to what we used to do and make it to where
Yeah.
And I think when you get the purpose of that, it'll put that drive in us to.
That's a good point. And for the music people in here to think about, like a few years ago, we'd asked the musicians to change the words from I to we, to recognize that we are doing this together. It's not just about me and my relationship with God. We have this relationship together with God. So, good point.
And I think, too, Matt, that sometimes the word discipline has a negative.
It does. But as we showed, like it's actually the reverse.
Even with I didn't go several times on Thursday just because I forgot.
Right.
But it becomes discipline, which leads to a better thing. It's not hurting, and it's not a negative
Right.
thing to be disciplined.
Yeah. Does everybody else struggle with that word, discipline? He was saying like he struggles with the word, like the idea of discipline, but realizes that it's necessary. It's a positive thing. We have a negative connotation with discipline, but it's actually a positive thing. And you think about that with sports. Your son, right? How often does he need to like practice? That's discipline, right? You change your diet to vegetables instead of fast food. You have to be disciplined with that because who likes eating broccoli? But you start eating whole, real food, all of a sudden you start realizing, I feel better. Of course you guys do, yes.
Raise your hand if you like broccoli.
Yeah. I like broccoli too. But I didn't like broccoli. I hated broccoli for 40 years. Hated broccoli. All right. Retreats, holidays. Man, these are something that we got to get back to as well. We have a retreat coming up February 14th, right? It's a gathering retreat where we all go away together. And this for many years was a big thing for us because it got us out of this place. Not just out of this room, not just out of this building, but out of St. Bernard, out of New Orleans and into nature. And all of a sudden all of those guards that we have up started to come down, and those walls started to break away, and we can actually really have real conversations with God and with each other. So we have to get back to those things and get more people involved and participating, not just showing up, but the more that you serve, the more that you partake in taking a role, it actually benefits you even more as well. So we're going to be asking more people to get involved.
On that note, you had up on the announcements for a few weeks with dates for Sabbath dinner, and even though I don't always think of those as a holiday, sometimes I see that TBD has been up there for weeks, and people have volunteered to host it. But I think a reminder for me, or a reminder for this group of what the Sabbath dinner is. Have you ever noticed that if we go to some certain person's house, they always invite a few people that know them that are not a part of this? And for me, it's like a reminder, don't put pressure to get all of these people in this room to come to your house. Help other people in your circle that's not here realize what you do and who you hang out with on a Saturday, and how those conversations kind of tie into each other. And Alex and Emily always have Mr. Bill and Miss Jane in their house, always. And at one time I see them to catch up with them. So So anyway, I just use that as an example to say, number one, it's a reminder, get out of this group, like Matt said, get out of this room. But also, we need to sign up for those because Abby sketched out the whole spring, 3 or 4 Saturday days. So let's sign up for those and try to mix our circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can invite people that aren't in this community to those as well. Allow them to experience the joy of community over a meal. For a long time, and still to this day, one of the top priorities that we had an ethos. An ethos is like, here's how we choose to live as a ministry. These things that were very important. For a long time, one of the top things that we had was ingenuity or creativity. Is one of the things that we lived on. Like we talked about for a long time, this idea that Yeshua said that there wasn't just 2 ways, right or wrong. There was a third option of always doing something. And we have to think creatively to step outside the box. Like we can't just get stuck in what is it here? It is what it is. That's just how we've always done things, right? And for years, like I would pull my hair out and like argue with pastors and people didn't like me. Rustin can tell you, like the pastors didn't like me, right? I was the weird guy because I was always challenging the status quo. Why do we have to do it that way? Just because we've always done it that way. How's that working out for you? Oh, nobody liked that, right? I was a jerk. But that was our ethos. And for some reason, I think we've gotten away from that as well. We've gotten away from this idea of stepping outside the box. I think we got comfortable. I think I myself was like the frog in the boiling water. I just let it started to warm up around me, and I kind of went stale. And I need to get back to that. But I also know that there are some artistic people in here, very creative people in here that could use their gifts, that could inspire and influence and maybe impact people by seeing creative things that are out there. Like there are art and, murals and paintings and sculptures and I think somebody, where's Claire? She was making mugs. There's all kinds of creative things that we can do, especially for the creative people. I think that we need to bring that back into our community and use that to inspire people, to motivate people. So if you have artistic gifts, are you using them to glorify God? Are you using your gifts to bring the kingdom here? What gifts can you use that would benefit people, that would glorify God in everything that you do? So I need those. We, as a community, need those gifts. And then the last one, it's not on there, but how are we going to help these people, every other month? We have a joy box back here. And, how often do I talk about the joy box? Never, right? Because I'm not a person that's going to stand up here and pass around a plate and tell you guys you have to give and, make you feel guilty because you're not giving. I feel dirty when I do that, right? I'm not that type of person. But on the other hand, there are a few things that we have to talk about that I think that are important, because I think the idea of tithing is less about the receiver than it is about the giver. Did you catch that? Tithing is less about the receiver than it is about the giver. Here's a few passages. Yeshua says this: "Do not lay up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart shall be also. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore the eye is good, and your body shall... therefore your eye is good, and your body shall be enlightened. But if your eye is evil, all your body shall be darkened. If then the light that is within you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one is able to serve 2 masters." Quick lesson. The evil eye is a Hebrew idiom. A good eye is a Hebrew idiom. You know what an idiom is? It's raining cats and dogs, right? It's not really raining cats and dogs. It's an idiom. The idiom for a good eye is a Hebrew idiom for a generous person. If you are a generous person, what did it say? You will be full of light. People will see. But when you are or have an evil eye, you will hoard, you will keep, you will control, there will be darkness within you. Giving is less about the receiver than it is the giver. The more that we give, the more that it impacts us individually. I change when I give. Leviticus talks about the idea, this is as ancient as it gets, where God gives the commandments to his people, and he says, when you farm, when you grow grapes, when you grow olives, when you grow whatever it is that you're growing, don't reap all the way to the edge of your property. Don't go all the way to your property. Don't be efficient. Don't get every single thing that you can. Leave the stuff on the edges. Why? For the people that don't have all of that. Right? In our mindset, in our Western mindset, we have to be efficient. We have to take everything that we can in and control everything and get everything that we can. But God tells his people, no, leave all of that other stuff. Just take the inner stuff. Leave the outside stuff. That was great. Leave the outside stuff for somebody else. That doesn't make sense to us in our world. But once again, God is teaching. And Yeshua said it in Acts. He says it's better to give than it is what? To receive. She's trying to give right now, isn't she? I got a lot to give, Mom. Right? We talked, one of my favorite stories was when Abraham went to go rescue his nephew, right? And I talked about this, the men's retreat, right? This idea of, these mighty men that were trained. They were trained in what? Somehow they were trained to take on an entire army. But one thing that I don't talk a lot about is what happens after he brings all of these people back. He brings a gift to Melchizedek. Right? He brings a gift to this spiritual person in recognition of, like, this is not mine. And he refuses to take the loot as well. Corinthians, Paul makes a statement that when you give with joy. Hence the name of that box. We don't give out of guilt. We don't give because we have to. We don't give because, we're forced to. We give out of the joy of our heart. And for some people, there's people in this room that have been giving for years. But for some people, some of you may have never given. And the idea of taking money from your check and giving it to something is counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. How will I have enough? And so one of the things that I had this idea is just look, test God in this. He actually says it in Malachi to test me in this. And I thought, what would happen if you just this month started at 1%? What's 1%? Right? 1% of whatever you make, just put 1% in. And then next month, put 2% in. And then 3%, and then 4%, and then find a way that eventually that you get to 10%. Because it's not just the Bible that says this, science. I love to dig into neuroscience and psychology and all this other stuff. But psychology teaches us that people who are generous, who give financially, there's actually an endorphin rush that you receive that makes you feel better emotionally. People who struggle with anxiety and stress, they found that when they start giving financially, it actually takes that anxiety and stress away. Do we struggle with that in society today? It's like one of the biggest problems that we have in society is anxiety and stress and depression. And science has said, give. And that'll help. It actually, the more that you give, you actually create stronger bonds within the community that you give to. You give because you feel like you're a part of something that has something greater value than yourself. You have a purpose that you are a part of, that you're giving to. Giving improves you physically, emotionally, and mentally. This is science. This isn't religion that tells us this. But this is the cool thing that I love when science actually meets up with what God has been saying for thousands of years. So how do we begin this journey, fulfilling the mission, which is the next one? Next slide. to become a spiritual community of restoration, of authenticity, of wholeness, by pursuing Yeshua and to live as he lived. One, it begins with loving ourselves. It begins with recognizing that I have value, you have value. You, from the very beginning of the text, it says that you were created in the image of God. How many of you believe that? How many of you believe that his image, his character is stamped on you? It's there. It may be covered up with crap, guilt, shame, all of the other things that you carry. It might be deep, and you might have to dig in to uncover it, but it's there. All of the things that have broken you over the years, it is there. God is waiting for you to just tap into that because he's saying, come to me. I can heal you. I can restore you. I can bring you back to wholeness. I think the harder question is, do you want that? Do you want that change? Because as I said last month, I think so many people fear change because they don't know what that change is going to bring. And the idea of being made whole again and being restored is scary because I'm comfortable in my junk. I'm comfortable in all of this crap that is around me and all of this brokenness. I know it sucks. I hate it, but I know it. But I don't know that. Which is probably why it's called faith. You have to believe that when you get here, it will be better. Discipline plus humility equals the awe of God. What do you need to be more disciplined in this year? What do you need, or where have you recognized that you struggle with pride? Is it in your marriage? Is it in your business? Is it in your work? Is it in your gifts? Where do you struggle with humility? Because to love yourself is also to discipline yourself. To care enough about yourself that I'm going to do these things for my heart, my soul, my mind, my resources. I am going to do these things because I want that. $2025. Man, quarter of this century, I think, is the year that we have to make the choice. Am I all in? Am I all in to making this change? Am I all in to pursuing God? Am I all in to choosing to discipline myself and pursue humility so that I can experience God in myself and in the people around me? 2025, are you all in for that? Next week, we have a conference that I've invited several churches to help participate and help, because I really have this idea, once again, going back to my old roots. It's not one group, one church, one community that's going to make a difference here. It's when everybody recognizes who they are and what you can do in this community. And what if we got all these people together to recognize, wow, there's more people here who love God, who want to make a difference in this community? What would that do to St. Bernard? I believe that if you got 300 people in a room, you would recognize, wow, this is actually kind of cool. There's more people that believe that what we believe, that really want to make a difference in this place. And it would fire us up to go do something more. Hopefully, to be more disciplined, and hopefully to have more humility. So that we together as one large community will experience the kingdom of God here. Yeshua's first message, repent, for the kingdom of God has come near you. It was in your midst. When we are willing to repent, to humble ourselves, and to, with discipline, follow him, we will experience the kingdom. It's here among us. You don't have to die to get there. You can experience it now. After this, if you have a desire to volunteer, I forgot these were here. We have shirts for the conference. If you're willing, if you want to volunteer, or if you want to buy a shirt and promote the stuff, please come get some. But I really want this to be a great thing for us as a community. And I think the more that we step outside this building and promote God, the more that it's going to affect each and every one of us together. Let me pray. Father, we just thank you for this morning. In humility, Father, I come to you and I ask, as a son, that you can cleanse our hearts today. That you can break down the walls that separate us from you, that you can broom and sweep off the dust and the dirt and the mire and the crap that holds us back from experiencing you. That you can break the spirit of fear that holds us back from moving in your direction. That we can pursue you, knowing that when we do, you will change us. That we can be made whole through you. That we can experience your presence. I pray, Father, that this year is a year that we together as one community devote ourselves to you. Forgive us for the past. Forgive us for anything that is holding us back, all the things that the garbage that we carry with us. Forgive us of all of those things. Cleanse us today as we desire you. We praise your holy name. Amen. All right. Have a great weekend.